There we go. Third time's a charm, I guess. Sorry about that, guys. Uh, yeah, for whatever reason, YouTube and my Streamlabs OBS don't always like to communicate. For whatever reason, I always have to start it, stop it, start it again, and then, uh, because for whatever reason, the first time it won't. It's supposed to publish the live stream to my Twitter account, but for whatever reason, it won't. It doesn't. It doesn't publish properly to YouTube in order for it to do that. So as I mentioned, I just got a torpedo 2 notes torpedo live that I just got put in, and I just got to get it up into my rack here, which may be a little easier said than done, but that's what I'm going to attempt to do while I'm talking to you guys here. So let's see if I can do this without messing up my microphone cable. What are your top favorite heavy metal bands? That's from Aztec Whistle. My all-time favorite band is Metallica. No question. James Hetfield is, without a doubt, the reason why I play guitar. And, one of the main reasons. I suppose really the real main reason would be my dad. But my dad is anything but a metal guitar player. Matter of fact, he didn't play anymore at all. He played in college, and that was really, he really hadn't played much since then. For him, it was more of it was much more of a hobby. And he was more of a folk style guitar player. But I wanted to be like my dad, and I wanted to play guitar because my dad played guitar when he was young, but stylistically, Metallica were my biggest influence. And then after Metallica, oh man, God, Maiden, Priest, Motley Crue, Kiss, if you want to call them metal. Man, let's see. Man, there's been so many. I don't know that I could pick. I don't even. After Metallica, there's a lot of bands that that I've always loved. A lot of metal bands, and I would have a real tough time narrowing it down. And then of course that also gets into the whole argument of they're not metal, they're this kind of music or whatever. Mostly thrash. The thrash metal scene. Yes, I do dig Slayer. When Slayer first came out, I remember they were like, the fastest band I had ever heard, ever. I don't know what, not when they came out, but when I first heard them. They'd been out for several years when I first got into them in the, mid-late 80s, I guess. So, but yeah, I like Slayer. I'm not a real big Kerry King fan. But yeah, I like Slayer. I like Anthrax. Love Megadeth. Five Finger Death Punch, actually. Reese Sturgeon's asking if I like Trivium or Five Finger Death Punch. I'm not into Trivium, but Five Finger Death Punch is actually one of my favorite bands as well. Matter of fact, if you look at my profile, my YouTube profile picture, that is me with there in the middle with Jeremy Spencer on the left and Zoltan Bathory on the right. And that was when I was still working at the store. They actually came in for a meet and greet at our store when they were out on tour. They were touring behind the Wrong Side of Heaven album, the first one anyway. The second one hadn't come out yet, but they were touring behind part one of Wrong Side of Heaven, and as part of that tour, they had arranged a meet and greet at our store, and they, were actually really, really cool guys. So they both autographed my copy of that, or I guess they autographed my copy of War's the Answer, because the Wrong Side of Heaven record hadn't officially been released yet. It was still had a couple of weeks before it came out. But let's see if I can move my desk back without knocking a bunch of shit over. I love buying new gear and getting new gear, new studio gear to make my life easier. But when it comes time to get this stuff racked up and installed, I'll have to do a video to show you guys what the back of my desk looks like, because it is a monumental sized pain in the ass to get back there. That right. And let's go that way just a hair. All right, cool. Got that done. That's a cool device, by the way. It sounds good. Awesome. Let's see. Can you guys hear me okay? For starters, this is a brand new mic. It's actually a broadcast microphone that I'm using. This is an Aston Stealth Audio, and according to all my levels and everything, it should be registering properly. You guys should be able to hear me, but you guys have told me otherwise when I've thought that before. So, let's see, where are we? Christopher Bass says, thanks for the cool videos. Dude, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Awesome. Very, very kind of you. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Thank all of you. Thank you to all of you for supporting the channel. Be it in the super chat or otherwise, even if it's just taking time to watch one of my stupid videos. Let's see, where are we? Give me a minute to get caught up here. Music Zip Kid. Christopher Morrow tried jumping in a couple of times when I was trying to figure out how the hell to get this thing turned on properly. Joseph Arquetti's here. I guess I don't know. Do you prefer Joseph or Joe or Joey? You have Joseph as your screen name, so I'm rolling with that until I'm told otherwise. Which is fine. As you guys know, I'm a Robert that only goes by Robert, and anything else really irritates the shit out of me. Let's see, Edgar Forster, Aztec Whistle, who we've already answered a question for. Jack Collins, Kim's Workshop, Christopher Bass, the Super Chat, Savinity Guitars, Reese Sturgeon, Lefty Guitarist, Don B, Joel Bateman, Mikey Gabbard, Michael L. Rakes, Charles 75N, Quentin James. Wow, a lot of people in here. All right, so I got my Torpedo Live racked up and ready to go. Cable sticking out, so now I can plug an amp into it when I need to. We'll get more into that on another day. So let's see, where are we? Edgar Forster says COC Cool Band 2, heavy but not sure if considered metal. If you're talking about COC as in corrosion conformity, that's metal. That's metal. That was early death metal. Not like Swedish death metal, but like corrosion conformity was like late 80s, early 90s. They've been around a long time. Not my style of metal, but they're definitely a metal band. Let's see. Christopher Bass says, I think metal started in the late 70s. I can't say it was Sabbath. There was a lot of stuff like that, and it was called hard rock. Oh, man. I mean, most people would credit Sabbath with being the first metal band. Um, and they were definitely much, much darker than anything else that had come out before them. Um, I don't, who was around before Sabbath? I mean, Zeppelin, but I mean, I don't know that Zeppelin were really considered a metal band. They definitely had, uh, they definitely had harder ads than anything else before them. Like Beatles and um, Yardbirds and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. First metal band I would have to say Sabbath. Early '70s when they came out. And then everything else kind of started coming around from there. Now, when Judas Priest came out in the late '70s, they were the first metal band to be, to start doing it without the blues influence that everybody else was doing. They were kind of coming at it from a different direction. Resturgeon, I'm sorry, says Jason Hook is the one that had me pick up guitar. Jason Hook's a great guitar player, man. He is a great guitar player. They actually, he's if you haven't seen the Netflix documentary called Hired Gun, you need to. And he's in that that video, that documentary a lot. And because he started out, his first big gig was playing guitar for Mandy Moore, pop star. And then he went, then he played for Alice Cooper for a long time, and he got the call from Five Finger Death Punch. Not only did they want to hire him as their new new guitar player, but they also wanted him to wanted his input. They didn't want to hire him as a hired gun. They wanted to hire him as a member of the band. Songwriting and that kind of stuff. So it was a big break for him. And he's been with them now for over 10 years. I think War's the Answer, I think, was his first record with them. So, he's a great guitar player. He's a great guitar player, and I'm glad he. I think Five Finger Death Punch's music gets for the most part anyway gets better and better with every record. I really like their latest one. So. War is the Answer, Wrong Side of Heaven, Part 1 anyway, are my two favorites. But Christopher Bass says, I know they tried using the term metal in the magazines, but I don't think it was a scene, a culture, or anything. If my opinion, I think Sabbath were technically the first metal band, but the term was actually named after Jimi Hendrix because a critic, writer somewhere wrote, when not long after, like when Jimi Hendrix first came out, he wrote an article and said that Jimi Hendrix's music sounded like heavy metal, falling from the sky, and that is where the term came from. So, yes, technically, you could credit Jimi Hendrix for being the earliest metal band. How about Testament or Exodus? I never really got into either one of them too much, to be honest. I was, in that era, I was really, I was still pretty young too, back in the '80s. So I was really into, again, I was into the big four thrash bands, and Priest and Maiden and Dio and Kiss. And everything else. And I guess you could really even consider, throw Kiss into this category at that point. But most of the other stuff that I was into back then was all, basically the hair metal stuff. So hair metal, power metal, all that stuff didn't have the subgenre names then that it does now. Back then it was all just metal. So, Ozzy. But yeah, I mean, Alex Skolnick is, he's one of those, one of the greatest another one of those guys that, could be in the conversation for greatest guitar player ever, at least from that decade. Isn't he involved? I think he's also in, whatchamacallit, the metal Christmas music band thing that goes out on tour every year around the holiday season. ELO, Electric Light Orchestra. I think in Alex Skolman, isn't Alex Skolnick in that part of that as well? I don't know. I think he is, but I could be wrong. Okay, mic is working, etc., etc. Let's see. There's some echo or reverb on it. It is, let me turn it down a little bit. Turn down the input. This mic it's cool because I've got it in an active mode right now, but you can run it active or passive, and passive, then I got to get right up on it. Active, it'll pick up from, it's obviously, a stronger signal, and I can, sit here and, and share a thought without having the thing right in my, right in my face. And it's also got 4 different voicings on it too, so you can use it for, getting, mic in a guitar cab or acoustic guitar, or, it's got 2 vocal voicings and 2 instrument voicings. The vocal one, so like a male or a female vocalist, depending on where the range is. So it's a great microphone, man. I like it a lot. Jack Collins says, I sure am loving my Dimebag Razorback Series guitar, which skulls all. Awesome, man. Yeah, Razorbacks are cool. They're big. It is a big guitar. I made the mistake of taking mine onto a small stage one night, and I was bumping it into shit everywhere. There's not a lot of room to move around with those things if you're playing on a small stage, but they are cool. Christopher Morrow says, I got a Rocktech chorus pedal yesterday. Came in original box with all the paperwork still in it. The bottom of the box was a McDonald's coupon for a free medium drink that expired in '91. Interesting. Back when they used to give away free drinks and fries and shit on there, and those little pull-off tabs on the side of the cups. I spent all Friday, or I guess part of Thursday night, Thursday afternoon, and all yesterday afternoon, and well into last night, hanging some more shelves and organizing all my pedals. And I took I still had stuff mounted on pedal boards that I haven't used in years because I haven't played out in so long now. So I cleared off all my pedal boards and and got everything all onto the shelves and organized, and it took a while. I think you guys have seen the 2 shelves that I had here above my desk. I added 2 more next to it, and the 2 that are above my desk now have all of my Boss pedals. And yeah, I kind of like the way it's all organized. I think it's about time I do another video of my pedal collection. Show you guys everything that I've amassed, and especially because I'm probably to the point that I'm gonna have to start selling a few things too, if I before I run out of room again. Michael L. Rakes says, "Hey Robert, how's your day, my friend? Going good, sir. So far, got my Torpedo Live racked up and installed and everything. So that's That was my main project I wanted to get done today. I've been doing a lot of. I still got some cleaning and organizing stuff here in this room that I need to wrap up, but a bunch of old. When you have gas like I do, you pile up cardboard boxes like they're water, and I had a bunch of those. So I've got 2 recycle bins, and I filled up both of them, overfilled both of them last night when I was taking stuff down. So, Joel Bateman says, you can call me Joel. Cool. Joey Van Ostrian says, my formal title is douchebag. So if I say douchebag Joey, as opposed to like Mr. Joey or something, you'll know who you'll know who we're talking about, who we're addressing. Joel Bateman says, wanted Jackson Randy Rhoads #1 guitar for Christmas. I've always liked the Randy Rhoads guitars, but man, they're like any V-shaped guitar, man, they're a pain in the ass to sit down and play. I cannot stand to have them cocked over one leg, and that's uncomfortable as hell for me. McDonough's here from London. Hello, sir. Good morning, or I guess for you it'd be well into the afternoon. Michael Elrick says, I just finished pissing my wife off doing a decibel experiment with 3 of my amplifiers in a 1,200 square foot home. I tell my wife all the time, so you know the man you married? Christopher Bass says, that's really it. The Priest Maiden 100% metal stuff was later. Retroactively seems obvious they were a metal band, but I don't think anyone was acting like they created a new genre in 72. I wasn't around in 72, but my understanding is that the world was pretty aware that these Black Sabbath cats were doing some stuff that nobody else was doing, and catching a lot of attention, a lot of heat for it too. They were making very, very liberal use of that Devil's Third. That nobody else, everybody else was too afraid to use those 3 chords at that time. Famer 7's here. Joey Van Osten says, I've been looking for years for a Metaltronics M1000 head. Now, my experience, pretty much anything Lee, all the Lee Jackson stuff is, it's always, it's never been real easy to find, but it's, as people are finally starting to grab on to, realize, who he is and recognize that name, it's getting even harder, and they're not cheap. Christopher Morrow says, unpopular opinion, I really don't like Kiss. -5 points. Same for you, GoopTuber. Yes, we know Gene is an asshole, but that's why we love him. You can't help but be entertained by the dude. And Gene Simmons is a very, very intelligent individual. Ambrose says, how do you keep people from stealing your expensive guitars? You put them in a Glary gig bag. No, you don't, because the gig bags that come with the friggin' Glary guitars are too small, and the headstock is still going to stick out of the top of it. Fucking Glary guitars. Man, what garbage! I can't, it kills me every time somebody gives me a hard time about, not having a whole lot of positive things to say about the video I did on those. They even came to me again a few months later and asked me if I'd do another one. Christopher Bass says, I wonder how many people tune to that quarter step tuning like Dimebag, though. Probably more common than you think. Van Halen did it. And Alice in Chains have done it. Usually that happens when, somebody's, kind of sort of tuned standard in the studio, and, they basically tune their guitar to itself. Pardon me. And have the bass player and the other guitar player follow suit, and then the engineer hits the record button. Usually how that happens. But I found if you intentionally tune a half step down from standard, then nobody knows the difference. Alex2112 says, hey Robert, just got a Gibson Les Paul Gold Top tribute with DiMarzio Gravity Storm pickups and Roller Bridge. Just amazing guitar used from Guitar Center. Nice, man. Congratulations. What year? I'd be curious to hear what year it is. Jay and Page, what's your opinion on Steely Dan? Any favorite tracks? So, not real fair to call me a Steely Dan fan. Reeling in the Years is a great song. It's a great guitar song. I like it. I like that song as well as the next guy, I guess. But I'm not going to drive around town listening to Steely Dan. Let's see, Topher T is here. Who else has popped in here that I may not have said hello to yet? We're up to 38 viewers, according to OBS. No, 41 according to YouTube. Crazy Cook 678, James Severin, Cool Guitar Gear. Hey, awesome, man. I'm glad you're here. That reminds me, I need to give a big shout out to Cool Guitar Gear. Everybody go and subscribe to his channel for me. For him, obviously, he referred a lot of companies my way here over the last week or so for to do some gear reviews, because he does a lot of gear reviews for I believe blogs and magazines, and maybe not magazines, but online kind of reviews. But he's trying to grow his YouTube channel, and dude knows his stuff. And so do me a solid, do him a solid, and go click on his link. Well, I don't know that. I'll tell you what. Why don't I do it this way? That's because I don't know that YouTube will let you click on the links in the chat anymore. At least it doesn't let me do it. It might let you guys do it, but. But what I can do is come over to his channel and copy the link, and then come over here and paste it in the chat. So there's a link to Cool Guitar Gear's channel. So go swing over there and hit the subscribe button for him. Really appreciate it, and it'll help him out a lot. see if I got everybody. I am Hot Frog. Cool screen name. Joey Jojo Shabadu. I think is everybody here so far anyway. Where was I? Christopher Bass says I'm assuming it's Bass because I don't know anybody with the last name Bass. Christopher Bass says I want to like pedals, but I have 3/4 distortion pedals, and I think of how Alex Lifeson just used the gain channel on his Marshalls and realized that's enough. You know, I like both, and you know, if it were to come down to for serious, like a serious live setup, I would probably have a distortion pedal on my board just as a backup, but I would primarily, or not as a backup, but maybe as like a secondary tone. But I would primarily use the distortion on the amp. It was actually, believe it or not, is actually my preference. I love distortion pedals and overdrive pedals and stuff like that, but amp distortion is for me really is where it's at. So, same thing in the studio, but, in the studio, pedals give you a lot more give me a lot more flexibility, for recording because, my Laney IRT studio sounds, for example, sounds a certain way. My JCM 900 sounds a certain way. My Randall RD20 sounds a certain way, and if I need something that one of those amps doesn't do or is somewhere in between, especially with as many drive pedals as I have, I can maybe fill in the blank and use those as a preamp as well. So, but I agree. I actually, when it comes to distortion, I actually prefer amp distortion, tube amp distortion. Joel Bateman says Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Slayer, Pantera, metal. I was a big Pantera fan too. Still am. GoopTuber fuzzes metal. Name one metal band that uses a fuzz. One real metal band. That uses a fuzz as their main tone. Robert, you should try snus. I got completely off nicotine that way. I don't know if my wife would go for that. Crazy Cook 678 says, Robert, good to see him surrounded by fires in Oregon. Be safe out there, man. I got a buddy that's out there in the Portland area, and he's in the south, the southeast of Portland, and he posted something on Facebook here just in the last day or so that showed where the fires were and, relation to where he is. And, he said they weren't being told to evacuate yet, but it looked like it was awful close, and I saw, Fluff mentioned on his channel the other day that in a live stream he was doing that the smog was, it's not as bad as it is in Portland, and, but up in it's still getting pretty bad in Seattle too, where he is. So, be safe out there, man. It's, it could get dangerous. Hopefully they get everything under control sooner rather than later so it doesn't get to that point. Quentin James says, you'll be in my New Gear Day video. Should be up in about 10 minutes. Thanks, man. Post the put the link down in the chat. Yeah, a lot of Kiss haters in this chat today. You guys are chatting amongst yourselves. Worked at a pawn shop and 2 of those Glary guitars came in. It was cheap as can be. The only people that I can, even beginners. I mean, the one that I got wouldn't stay in tune. And I'm not talking just the strings need to be stretched and need to be set up. I mean, it would not stay in tune. It's like the gears and the tuning machines were stripped out right out of the box or something. I've never seen a guitar behave like that. People still comment on that video and gripe and moan about me not knowing what I'm doing. I still get people bitching about that all the time. And I mean, yes, I'm aware it's a $70 guitar, but it's a $70 guitar. So if you're one of those guys that likes to change everything out and project guitar kind of guys, that maybe it's for you, but I mean, matter of fact, I still have it. It's still here. I need to get it to Josh at Share the Music, so that he can refurb it and refurbish it and do what he needs to do with it and get it to somebody who needs it. But unfortunately, he's got some things going on in his life here that are far more important than collecting a guitar from me, and just haven't been able to find time to go catch up with him. He also lives all the way on the other side of town from me too, so. I am Hot Frog says Kiss is more about marketing than music. They've also proved there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But to be fair, no, they're not Dream Theater as far as as far as songwriting goes. But it's not like they're bad musicians. I mean, they understand the fundamentals of music theory and know how to construct songs. Especially there in the '80s, when they had some really, really good guitar players playing with them, and Eric Carr, for that matter. Infunda says, have you thought about doing a best mini or under 50 watt amp head video? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I haven't done one yet, but I have thought about it. Ambrose says, okay, round 2, how do you keep people from stealing your expensive guitars? Become a lefty. That is true. That is true. Left-handed guitar players they have a real hard time finding instruments. When I was at the store, I used to have to refer people. There's a shop in Texas, I think, called Southpaw Music, and they deal in nothing but, they're a pretty big shop too, but they deal in nothing but left-handed instruments. So, I always told people coming in looking for a left-handed guitar player, if we don't have it and I can't get it, look those guys up. Glaries are an excellent platform to learn how to do fretwork and refrets, learning how to solder properly, etc. Yeah, and if you're an experienced guitar player, that's really the only people that if you're looking for something to tinker around on, That's really about, in my opinion, about the only thing that those guitars are any good for. So, Joey Jojo Zabadu says, on stage, the gain from Marshall is more than adequate without a doubt. Overdrive pedal is great when you want grit without all the extra volume, also for boosting leads. Yep, I agree. I love Marshalls, and particularly the the single channel stuff. Where so much of that sound actually comes from the power amp section, being pushed hard. Yeah, that was the sound of the '80s, the '70s, and '80s, really. Michael L. Rake says, I realized the other day the very last piece of gear I got was 10 years ago, coinciding with the year I bought a house with my wife. I'm practicing a fine guilt trip speech as this is criminal. I wish you luck, buddy. Don B says my wife left when I got my second Marshall stack. I played in a band with a guy like that. We were a teeny tiny little bar band, played a lot of recovery events and stuff like that, and he rolled up every gig we played with 2 Marshall JCM 2000 DSL 100 full stacks. And here I am with my little. I played bass in that band. Here I am, my little bass combo going direct. Cool Guitar Gear says, have you ever had a custom guitar made by a luthier? If not, why not? If so, was it to your expectations? No, I have not. And custom guitars, unless you go with like one of the overseas builders, which I'm leery of. I don't know that I would want a custom guitar built by, Ronco or who was Agile used to. I think it was Agile used to do that stuff. They used to do like some custom builds, within their specs anyway, kind of similar to what Carvin does, or now Kiesel. And it was a lot more affordable, but no. Have I ever had a custom guitar built? No, because number one, there are luthiers in my area, and I don't know. I just just not something I've ever really been. I've thought about it, but it's never. I guess it's never been a priority. I'm perfectly fine buying, Ernie Balls and Music Mans and Schecters and BC Riches and, stuff like that. So. Christopher Bass says Metallica used a Rat, which is a fuzz. Rat pedals kind of walk the line between distortion and fuzz, but when did Metallica ever use a Rat pedal? Don B says, I'm in Eastern Oregon and the smoke is so thick you could cut it with a knife. That's what I understand. Like I said, those are, it's dangerous out there. X Gears here. What's up, man? I'm assuming that's Paul Killian. There's another channel you guys need to go check out, dude. Check out, Paul Killian. I assume you do the same thing on YouTube. I always see you go live on Facebook, but those. I've demoed 2 of those X Gear pedals so far now, and they're both killer. I was really impressed with the Crush Overdrive. That thing was awesome. Killer overdrive pedal, and so they sent me that, and but Paul does he goes does some videos with but his videos are centered a lot more around playing because he's a really really Paul Killian is a really good guitar player. So he gets on there, shares like playing tips and music theory tips and things of that nature, while playing through X Gear pedals. So he's not out there just plugging their gear. He's actually applying it and sharing knowledge, whether you're into their pedals or not. So definitely go check out that channel. Christopher Morrow says, "Hey Robert, can I link my channel in the chat?" Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. If it blocks it, I'll. It won't block it, but there's some some comments. If they got 4-letter words and stuff in it, that it'll, YouTube will make me approve it or not. So. Paul Fuchs is here. Says, how do you dial in a neck PAF and a Super D as a probably Super Distortion bridge? I don't know what you mean about how to dial them in. Every guitar that I pick up and play, I have the volume and tone knobs both on 10, pretty much at all times. So I'm not sure what your volume and tone controls on 10, and pickups an eighth of an inch away from the strings is how I set them up. Beyond that, if there's something else more specific, I would need you to elaborate. X Gear says, what is your most expensive guitar? Value-wise, probably my Gibson. Well, like if I were to put them all up for sale right now, probably the one that would bring the most money would be my Zakk Wylde, my Gibson Zakk Wylde Vertigo Les Paul. And behind that would probably be the Hamer Scarab. And the next one behind that would be my Majesty, this one. So as far as most expensive right out of the gate, what the most expensive one that cost new, that would definitely be this one. This one was, I bought it used, and I got a really really good price on it used, but brand new this guitar was $2,600, $2,700, something like that. They've changed up the music, man. The Majesty guitar line, just a little bit. That was one of the original ones, from the first run of them that came out. They've made a few changes to it. So, Ambrose is in the super chat. Thank you so much. Says, have you ever tried a DoD American metal pedal? Not sure if mine's broken, but it sounds more like a fuzz than metal. There's not much videos on it. Oh man, yeah, but it's been such a long time. It was one of those things that a used one came through at the store one time, and I think I remember plugging it in long enough just to make sure it worked before I gave the dude money, and didn't really spend a lot of time with it, dialing in tones or anything like that. I've heard other people use them and they're kind of, okay. Those old DoD pedals, they do seem to, it seems to be fairly easy for, a connection or a wiring of some kind connection on the inside to pop loose. So it could be something like that, which, is a simple soldering fix if you know how to solder. Beyond that, though, beyond that, I'm afraid I don't really have a whole lot in the way of suggestions for you. Pardon me. Let's see. Ace was cool. He used to play Cold Gin. I think that was I think Ace wrote Cold Gin. I think that song was one of Ace's. A lot of those old classic Kiss songs, Ace Frehley wrote a lot of those. X Gear says Kiss is one of the greatest bands ever. Even if you hate them, you have to respect them. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with that. If nothing else, they unlocked an entirely different side of the business and the industry that nobody else had before. Where did I go? Dennis O'Rourke is here. Says, hey brother, did you ever check out those Shiji strats? Daryl Braun did a great video on them. They're $800, and the quality seems to do $1,200 fenders. Seems to outdo $1,200 fenders. Carbon reinforced necks and everything. I have not had a chance to yet, unfortunately. I've been, I've actually had the week off, but my week off has been loaded with, last several days have been, like I said, organizing, organizing gear and stuff, and some honeydew stuff around the house, that kind of stuff. So I haven't been doing too much in the way of gear shopping, and also I, not only did I buy this, I buy this Torpedo Live, but I also bought, just some accessory stuff, like this module stand that I use for pedal demos. I actually bought, a second tier of that, and this microphone, being the probably being the priciest thing on that order, but some cables and strings and picks and stuff like that. But kind of took a kind of torpedoed my gear budget here for a bit. X Gear in the super chat, thank you so much, sir. Says, anyone in your channel interested in an X Gear pedal, I will hook them up today. Also, I'll throw in a free guitar lesson. There you go, guys. Killer pedals. I've demoed the Max Metal Distortion and the Crush Overdrive, and so you can check those out on my channel if you want to hear, get an idea of what they sound like. Pete Thorne did a killer demo on I think it was the Red Fury distortion, which is more of a rock distortion than a metal distortion. But he did a great demo on that, and they've got all kinds of stuff. I think they've got like a blues driver type of overdrive. They've got delays, and it's a full line of pedals, and they're not cheap. Import Chinese brand pedals. Those things are $140, $150 a piece. So, it's real deal stuff. And like I said, or like I didn't say this, but like Paul said, if he's also willing to throw in a free guitar lesson. So, and that is an opportunity to learn some really good stuff about how to play guitar. Like I said, if you haven't heard Paul Killian play guitar, he is a great guitar player. So, thank you, Paul, very much for the super chat. I encourage everybody to go, to take him up on his offer. I don't know what you're offering as far as discounts or anything, but I'll leave that. I'm gonna stay out of that. But Joel Bateman says, all my BC Riches stay in tune very well. So do mine, really. Some of the more inexpensive lines, like the, my very first BC Rich is a Bronze Series. And that one, looking back, that one didn't stay in tune very well. But changed out the tuners on it, and it was fine. Joey Jojo Shabatu says Black Diamond is one of the best rock songs written by any band ever. I could run down an entire list of Kiss songs that I would also throw into that category, but yeah, Black Diamond's pretty awesome. That's one I've gotten to see him play live. Their catalog has gotten so freaking huge, man. You know, when if you go see Kiss one year and then you go see him again the next year, it's a totally different show. Pardon me. It's like Maiden. You know, I saw Maiden last year, and when I saw him, I think it was 5 years ago or 5 years before that, whenever it was the last time they were around. When I saw them the first, the 5 years prior, it was pretty much, it wasn't the same tour, but it was pretty much the same show that they were, that went on, that you saw on the Flight 666 DVD that they put out, and there's also a live album audio version of it. You know, it was pretty much that show. They moved some things around, but in the set, but for the most part, they played most of the same songs, and it was kind of the, a long show, of the, their most popular songs. Great show. I had a blast. I'd go do it again tomorrow. But when they went on tour again, I went and saw them last year. They played the Trooper, and they played Hallowed Be Thy Name, and they played Run to the Hills, they played Aces High. They hit the they hit all the important stuff that they, every popular band has those songs that they have to play, because if they don't play them, they're just going to piss off their fans. But so they played all that stuff, but everything else was all stuff that like Where Eagles Dare and Flight of Icarus and stuff like that I haven't seen them or heard them play live in years. So and going to see Kiss is a lot like that, man. Every time I've seen them, it's been totally different from the time that I saw them before. Mikey Gabbard said, yesterday I traded my Squier Supersonic for an Ibanez AM73 semi-hollow body. Nice. Those Ibanez semi-hollow bodies are actually pretty good guitars. Battio's a cheater since he's left-handed. I think technically, when he's only playing the guitar with one neck on it, I think he's a lot of left-handed players actually learn to play right-handed, so they don't get screwed by the manufacturing side of it. Christopher Bass says, have you tried Crawl Speaker Soak yet? I use it even on the 5-watt Marshall. Yeah, I have one. I demoed. I did a video on that a long time ago. Probably 3 years ago, I did that video. It's still up on my channel. That one actually still, a lot of people actually still view that one quite a bit. Every time I go look at it, a couple 3 times a year, just for kicks, because I don't pay attention to videos that old anymore, but at least my videos. And every time I go look at it, it's got a lot more views than I ever expected. So. I can't recall ever seeing a full stack with a 6505 head. Oh, they're out there. Anymore though, man. Most people that play 6505s are metalheads, and metal players generally only got so much money, and they've scraped together every dime that they could find under every couch that they could locate, that they've sat on just to get the head and cabinet. What is your opinion of Carvin Kiesel guitars? I like them, the headless stuff. The headless stuff was cool a few years ago when it kind of started making a comeback, because I always liked it, like the Steinbergers and stuff in the 80s. Pardon me. So, I like the headless stuff, but now it's kind of taken over everywhere, and that's between the Strandbergs and the Kiesels. So if I were gonna buy a Kiesel, it wouldn't be a headless guitar. It would be. I've always liked the DC 600s. When they were still Carvins, I always really liked those guitars. And their product line has evolved quite a bit since the carving days. So no, I like them. I don't own one. I've never owned one, unfortunately, but I think they're great instruments. I wish the world hadn't discovered them, because you used to be able to buy them dirt cheap on the used market. Joey Van Ostrom says, Agile will be the only custom Chinese builder I would trust after that Firefly fiasco. I'm done with low-cost shitty guitars. I only need one time to learn a lesson. I think a lot of that depends on the company. And Agile, I think, is actually Korean. But God, there's so many companies now that are producing great quality instruments for very fair prices. The Harley Bentons and that 10S. You can see the headstock, of my 10S sitting there behind me. There's a lot of companies out there that are putting out really, really good instruments for not a lot of money. I mean, that 10S, it's an Explorer style guitar, and I mean that same guitar and Epiphones. That 10S is $350. The Epiphone equivalent's, another $150 more at least, probably $250. So now but I get your trepidation after your experience with the Firefly thing. Jojo Sabato says, I think Hetfield used a rat on Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. Well, Kill 'Em All, was the rat pedal even out yet? I mean, Kill 'Em All was 83, right? I guess the rat pedal would have just come out, but I don't know, man. I thought Kirk was playing Marshalls, and James was, still playing his Mesa Mark II C Plus. And I've had a chance to play a Mark II C Plus before, and and I've sat down, and all those old Kill 'Em All tones are in that amp. So I don't know that I buy that James Hetfield used a rat pedal on Kill 'Em All, but I could be wrong. X-Gear says, there we go, yes sir. Live on YouTube and Facebook Friday nights at 7. So there you have it. Friday nights at 7. Is that 7? What is that? 7. You're in California, so is that 7 Pacific time or Eastern? What time zone? I'm assuming that's 7 Pacific time. I'm going to, yeah. Joel Bateman says, too bad Slayer broke up, I think because their main songwriter died, Jeff Hanneman. They kept going for quite a while after Hanneman died. Jeff Hanneman's been dead almost 10 years now, I think. I think it was just, time, and those guys aren't getting any younger. I think that, with, sometimes this happens with bands, man. Sometimes it's, the ride comes to an end. It just does, and the guys aren't, band members aren't feeling it anymore like they used to. Between, and I'm sure Jeff Hanneman, Jeff Hanneman's death had something to do with it. As did Dave Lombardo leaving the band early as well. So, I think it was, for those guys, it was just time. It was just time. There was nothing to be ashamed of the run that they had. So, Kerry King's still going. He just signed a new endorsement deal with Dean. So, he's obviously still got something up his sleeve. I don't know what he plans to do next, but where to go? Stupid thing jumped all the way down to the bottom again for me. X Gear says, I want to see the Zakk Wylde guitar. uh, I'll break it out in a video here. I mean, I've used it on my channel before. I haven't used it in anything in a while, though, so it's probably about time. I'll pull it out for something here recently. A lot of people seem to dig it when I pull that one out for some reason. It is a cool guitar. I wouldn't own it if I didn't like it. So I thought those DoD pedals sounded like a chainsaw when they were blowing them out, and thought about getting them. Robert did a great video on the Gunslinger. Thank you. It's been a while since I did that Gunslinger video. I ran across that pedal last night when I was rearranging things, and you know that I actually really like that distortion pedal, and haven't used it in a while. I may have to pull it out for something. Another something or other. I may have to pull out for something here. My dad got ripped off on a Chipson Zakk Wylde at a pawn shop a few years back. That's when I first came across one of those abominations. He managed to do well, though, and traded it, honestly, for a G&L. Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with all you know, those fake Gibsons are, you know, they started flooding the market here in the last 10 years or so. And, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for, they're getting better. You know, they're getting better at copying them, too. So, you know, I mean, I've kind of got my own specific checklist that I look for when I'm, you know, when I'm looking at those to figure out if it's authentic or not. Pardon me. Paul Ewing of Stompbox Deals is here. Welcome, sir. Paul Fuchs says my DoD Octoplus is amazing. I don't know that I've ever tried that pedal. My knees hurt is here. My knees hurt too. Two of my closest friends decided that they hate me here all of a sudden this morning, and texted me and said that we're all playing golf at 7:20 a.m. tomorrow morning. I told them that's what time I usually go to bed on the weekends. But apparently I'm going to bed early tonight and getting up at 6 to go play golf. I don't know what I did to them, but Joel Bateman says, if you want to learn guitar playing for free, check out Steve Stein's YouTube channel. Steve Stein's channel is great. I've learned a lot from Steve's channel. I have. But I've also learned, learned a small amount, learned a fair amount in the small amount of time that I've been following Paul. Joey Jojo Shibatu says, Volume 10, tone on 0 if you want to sound really heavy. No thanks, man. I like some treble on my tone. Dave Escobar says, Pete Thorne makes everything sound good. That he does. Pete's another fantastic guitar player. If you've watched my channel for any length of time at all, I mean, you guys know how much I look up to Pete Thorne. That dude is a really, really good guitar player and a great guy. Great dude. I mean, I've never met him, or anything like that, but just everything that I have seen, my brief YouTube interactions with him have all been nothing but positive. Seems like a great dude. Cool Guitar Gear says, would love to review an X Gear pedal. Reach me at logicbdj@hotmail.com. My knees hurt says, what's for lunch or dinner? My wife and I have a weekly tradition. Usually it's on Fridays, but she had to work late last night, so we didn't get to do it. But I go and get us a couple of I go and get us Qdoba, and then we come home. I come back home and we enjoy our Qdoba because we love Qdoba. We enjoy our Qdoba on the couch and watch TV together, and have our date night at home every single week. So that's what we're doing this evening. And then tomorrow, I told her I'm gonna cook Italian for her. So, cooking Italian for her tomorrow evening, in exchange for her letting me watch football all day. After I play golf at 7:20 in the morning. Something tells me I'm gonna be tired on my first day back to work on Monday. Crazy Cook 678 said, I've been thinking of getting a Charvel. What is your opinion on Charvel guitars? I think Charvel guitars are great, man. You can do a lot worse. Depends on which one. I don't know if you're talking about getting a new one or if you're talking about picking something up off the used market. I've got an '87 Model 5, which was made in Japan. Back then. I mean, it was the Model 5 was basically the made in Japan equivalent of the Jackson Soloist. Even has Jackson pickups in it. So the old USA Jackson pickups that are actually pretty desirable, believe it or not, if you're a Jackson Charvel fanatic. But yeah, Charvels are awesome, man. I love Charvels. I've got two of them. I've got that one, and I've got my the later my SK1 Skatecaster. From the Desolation series that they surprisingly short-lived. I can't believe they discontinued those. It's too bad because that was a lot of guitar for the money. They had to have been given away or losing money on that line. It's the only reason I could think of why they discontinued them. But yeah, they're great. I haven't gotten my hands on any of the current the stuff that they're now making in Mexico. I haven't got my hands on any of that stuff, but what I understand, they're pretty. I haven't run across anybody that's been disappointed in any of them. You could do a lot worse. Joel Bateman says Lars Ulrich is a terrible drummer. Prove me wrong. Listen to you don't listen to any of the first 4 albums. Yeah, I mean, Lars's skills have diminished as he's gotten older. He can't play that fast, quite like he used to. Though I didn't see him miss a beat when I saw him live about a year and a half ago, and I was standing about 20 feet away from him, and I was actually kind of behind him, so I could see his feet, on the kick drums and everything. So, yeah, no, I think Lars gets a much worse rap than he deserves. Is he the greatest drummer in the world? No. Is he a terrible drummer? No. Dave Escobar says Shoals Sustainer for Somewhere in Time Tone. Interesting. Maiden are a little bit different. I mean, I think they're using Marshalls now, but back in the late '80s, early '90s, I think they were using. Weren't they using Gallien-Kruger? Solid state stuff. Serenity Guitar says X Gear. Where are you based out of? That's a question for X Gear, but. If he's still in here, if he didn't answer that, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they're in California, L.A. area, I believe, is where their office is. JG Mopar is here. Says, dang, I'm late. Cool Guitar Gear says Ted Nugent shows how to play a hollow body. I've seen some of Ted Nugent's instructional videos. Actually, they're actually pretty cool. Um, it's a it's a guitar lesson from the Detroit City Madman, but and that's the style of guitar lesson it is. But say what you want about Ted, but you can't. He's a hell of a guitar player. Always has been. And yes, normally he plays. He actually plays Birdlands, which is a hollow, full hollow body. My knees hurt says, who loves the PV Bandit 75 amps? I almost bought a PV Bandit a few weeks back. And I found I'm told that, I've been curious about those for a while. Everybody, as all the PV Bandit fanatics say, they're a great pedal platform. And the red stripe is the version to have. And I found one for what I thought was fun. I finally ran across one for what I felt was a fair price, and I kind of hem-hawed around about it, and decided if I was really wanted, if I really needed it that bad, which I don't. But regardless, I thought about it too long. Somebody else jumped on it and beat me to it, so just wasn't the right time. Dave Escobar says Kirk Marshalls, as in Kirk Hammett's Marshalls, boosted with tube screamers early on. I don't know if that's short for anything or yeah, I don't for lack of a better way to pronounce your screen name, that's what I'm going with. So any recommendations for a good metal preamp pedal? Amp Tweaker Type Metal Pro, hands down, or the Fat Metal Pro if you want to go that route. I like the Type Metal Pro. Honestly, I don't. There's a slight difference, but I don't think it's really it's kind of the Fat Metal is more for like if you're playing like a brighter sounding amp, kind of beef up the bottom end. Type Metal Pro is if you're playing through through like a darker sounding bottom heavy sounding amp already. The Amp Tweaker Type Metal Pro that's the best pedal I've ever owned, and it's a killer preamp. It's got the Pro version it's got 3 effects loops in it. I mean, you could if you wanted to go silent on stage and just use your pedals and use it's basically a all those Amp Tweaker pedals were designed by James Brown, the same guy that designed the 5150 amp. So I mean, it sounds real similar to that, and obviously it's not an accident. So, pardon me. So you'd be surprised, if you're going to use it as a preamp. In other words, not running into the front end of an amplifier, just running straight into a power amp. However you choose to do that, there's a lot of distortion pedals out there that that are great for doing that. Boss pedals are notorious for it nowadays. Just even the original Metal Zone. You guys know how much I love the Wazacraft version of the Metal Zone. The Digitech TL2 hardwire TL2 metal distortion is great as a preamp. Some of those are just great as distortion pedals too, if you do run them into the front end. Matter of fact, all of those are. I would even throw in the Pepper's Pedals Satanist distortion on that list as well. Pardon me. Christopher Bass says Kerry King was writing the majority of the songs towards the end of Jeff's life. I've never questioned Kerry King's songwriting abilities. You know, I mean, he can construct songs as well as anybody else. You know, his solos are what I don't like because it kind of seems like he doesn't. And there are times you can get away with this, but when you're doing it at his level, it kind of seems like he just kind of ignores scales. At least on the early records. Like the solo to his solo to to Rain Blood. He didn't use any scales. He just wailed away. Just not even didn't care if it was in key or not. Pardon me. I admire his speed. As he plays really fast and he hits all those notes. I just don't think he pays much attention to where they, which notes he's hitting as they land. Jesse Walker says, "How do you like mid-'80s West Tone guitars?" I've gotten my hands on a few of them, and they're pretty good guitars. The era that we're in right now is really kind of similar to the 80s because over the last 10 years or so, you may have noticed all of a sudden all those old 80s guitars, everybody suddenly realized, wow, these are built really, really well. And, it started picking them up dirt cheap on the used market. Pardon me. So, give me a moment here as I... Where did he go? Oh, Nelson Velasquez. Is... Now he's gone. See ya, Nelson. Act like a douchebag. Anyway, but here in the last 10 years or so, everybody kind of discovered that, all those guitars that nobody paid a lot of attention to that were made back in the 80s are actually really, really well made. And now, there's some of these guitars that are being made now, again, the 10S's, the Harley Bentons, the Agile, stuff like that, that are just now starting to get some attention. And as a result, I see a lot of similarities in the guitar market now versus where they were back then. So, to answer your question, the mid '80s West Tone guitars actually, are just like most everything else back in the '80s. Hondo guitars are about the only ones I can think of that weren't at least off the top of my head. I know there were others, but the ones that come to mind that I have experience with, the Hondo guitars were really about the only ones I can think of that were not very well made. Just about everything else from that era, killer, whether they were popular or not, whether they're expensive, and valuable on the used and vintage market today or not, there was a lot of really, really well made instruments coming out back then, made from all over the world. Gabriel Tone Guitar says, "I thought Metallica used 2 Tube Screamers stacked." Man, here's the thing. I don't, I got a question. I don't think anybody's real sure what Metallica was using, on a lot of, in a lot of situations early on, because there seems to be, and part of this is, I'm sure, is just due to how big they've gotten. As far, from a popularity standpoint, the most popular metal band in history, but you always get all kinds of conflicting, arguments about gear that they used back then. So I mean, the truth is, I don't think anybody knows for sure. Or there's so many different reports and different. I've read this and I've heard that, and so and so said this about what they were using. Who knows, man? So until it comes from James and Kirk themselves, I question how much you got to trust any of it. Because as soon as you read one thing that seems like that's probably the answers, you're going to find something else that may prove otherwise. Dave Escobar, yeah, Tube Screamer is always Kirk's thing. I think Kirk turned James onto a lot of gear, most notably EMGs. Probably correct. Kill 'Em All come out in 81. I thought Kill 'Em All was 83. Kill 'Em All was 83. Red Lightning was 84. Master of Puppets was 86, I think. And Justice for All was 87. XA Town 23 says advice for writing music. You're asking the wrong guy, man. You're asking the wrong guy. I mean, the thing with most of the songwriting stuff that I come up, the riffs and stuff that I come up with, are things that I don't really take it that seriously. I come up with a riff, and then that kind of becomes the basis for whatever it is that I'm using to demo whatever piece of gear that I'm demoing on my channel. And sometimes I like it and think it's a pretty decent riff, and then if it's something that I plan on expanding out beyond that riff, and it turns into a verse and a chorus and a bridge and an intro and all that stuff. When a lot of times the finished product comes out a lot different from what I normally, from what I originally envisioned in my head. And those are the ones where I do a full track demo that's 3 or 4 minutes long versus, the ones where I do a full track demo that are 30 seconds or a minute long that's just one riff over and over with a solo on top of it. The truth is, some of it, some of those I like. A few of them, that I've done, I really, really like. I would say at least half of them I am lukewarm about, or I've gone back and listened to and actually hated. So I mean, songwriting for me anyway has been just like anything else. It's practice, trial and error, and sometimes you hit a home run and you come up with something that you really, really like, and sometimes you end up scrapping the whole thing and start over from the get-go. And and most of the stuff that I have scrapped, a few things that never did see the light of day because I hated them that much. But for the most part, if I'm even if I'm kind of I'm not crazy about it, but for purposes of demonstrating this overdrive pedal, it'll get the job done, and I've gone ahead and just went with it. So, and then there's some of them that didn't really have that much of an impact on me one way or the other that I don't remember at all, and don't until I go back and watch the video that they went into. Sometimes that so really that's kind of like my version of a audio notepad. So when I go back and re-listen to some of that stuff, then it might give me some new ideas that I didn't have at the time, and I can take that riff or riffs or whatever it may be, and rework it, and in some cases repurpose it. And then there's times that I just can't come up with anything, or I don't have the energy for anything like that, and I recycle an old one. So, that was in a video a year ago or a year and a half ago. And, fortunately, you guys don't seem to notice when I do that, so. I'm going to the store for food items. Any suggestion on what I should cook? I have all day to spend in the kitchen. I don't know what part of the world you're in, but in my part of the world, it's still fairly warm outside. So if it were me, I'd be going something I could throw on the grill. Sevinity Guitar says, ZW, Zakk Wylde guitar you have, I want. Sorry, it's not for sale. Topher T says, who's Rob? I ask that question often. Christopher Bass says, Robert's on the wagon, so I think it's in poor taste to have a drinking game. Well, he can't hear you anymore, so I didn't delete him because he was suggested having a drinking game. It's, at my expense. I deleted him. I kicked him out because he was suggesting having a drinking game at my struggles with speaking, which is something else I tend to get a little sensitive about. X-Gear says, used to see Zakk Wylde play a Leonard Skinner cover band back in the day out here in California. He killed it. I've heard stories. I think I may have even recently seen a video of him playing in that band. Somebody took an old camcorder video. I think he was doing that after he was already playing with Ozzy. So I think it was like in between album cycles or tours or something, if I remember correct, but I could be wrong. Yeah, Zakk Wylde loves all that old classic rock stuff. He actually, surprisingly, what he really, really hated was the hair metal stuff. One of my favorite Zakk Wylde stories is, if you guys are familiar with, if you guys remember when he was playing that Les Paul that, they had they torched the top of, that the finish on that guitar originally was a Rebel flag, and he had just gotten it, and Gibson had just built it for him. And somebody came to him and said, hey, man, that's a great guitar. Bret Michaels from Poison has a guitar with that exact same finish on it. And Zakk Wylde hated that stuff. So the first thing he did, as soon as he heard that, was doused it in kerosene and threw a match on it to get rid of the finish. And then somewhere along the lines, he started banging beer bottle caps into the top of it, and it became the bottle cap guitar. Because he didn't want to be anything like Bret Michaels, which I thought was hilarious. I like Bret Michaels, by the way. I'm actually a big Poison fan, but he was not. Assuming that story is true. Pardon me. X-Gear, my knees hurt, says my whole body hurts, 3 back surgeries, random broken bones, etc. I'm going to play golf tomorrow, and I got a feeling I'm going to be pretty sore tomorrow afternoon by the time I get back. X-Gear says, if you have problems with improving your playing, I can help. I break down what your big issues are, and we fix them. And he is good at that. PRS Rocker. My good friend Jim Woodard's here. Says, hey, Robert, how's your weekend going? Dragon is nipping my toes and fighting his toys. Jim's got a new Drogon. Is it Drogon? Jim's got a new puppy at home that he is absolutely in love with. Dave Escobar says, get a Charvel model series. If you can track one down, any of them. Model 1 through the Model 7 is the, ooh, I think Model 7 was the top one, but that was the Telly shape, the Telly body style. Let's see. Give me a minute here, folks. I am way behind in the chat here at the moment. Model 5 neck through, no binding and dots. Model 6 neck through, binding and shark fins. Does mine have shark fins? I thought my Model 5 had. No, maybe not. I guess it doesn't. So, yeah, you're right. Most of the differences between the Model 5 and the Model 6 were aesthetics. So, and I think each of those you could get an HH or an HSS or an HSH pickup configuration depending on what you're after. Let's see. I can't seem to mix humbuckers and single coil successfully. I just hate the output differences. I actually never minded that. I sold it, but that Vester guitar that I used to have had a humbucker in the bridge and just a single coil in the neck, and it produced quite different tones from the front to the back, but I never had any problems with output on them. Leonard Zabinski says, "Hi Robert, would you ever gig with a Squier Classic Vibe Strat?" Quality-wise, yeah, absolutely. They're certainly built well enough that you can gig with. What I run into is, in my case, what I gig with it, I wouldn't play a whole gig with it, just because I can't think of a single show that I would be playing and that I would need a single coil, a Strat for an entire show. But, in my case, just because of, and this is partially my fault, but with the audience that I have built on YouTube, I am expected by viewers, whether they're subscribers or not, whether they're hanging out in this chat with us here today or not, there is a contingent of people that see me on YouTube that expect a certain, that expect certain things from me, and those people will not take me seriously if I'm demoing demoing anything for the most part with a Squier Strat. And that's not a knock on Squier. That's a knock on Squier's marketing through the 90s that torpedoed. There's a lot of people now that still have the stigma that Squiers are entry-level beginner guitars, despite the fact that they are very well made. There's nothing wrong with the guitars at all, but Fender marketed them poorly throughout the 90s and did relegate them to cheap entry-level guitars that weren't worth anything, and that reputation for that brand is still around for a lot of people. So that's in my instance, I have to be mindful. I have to be mindful of that, despite the fact that I do have a Squier Strat hanging on the wall. But I don't use it. I don't use it much, just because I just never really got along with that particular guitar anyway. But would I advise somebody else, if they wanted to gig with a Squier Classic Vibe Strat? Absolutely. Nothing wrong with it. Let's see. Kobiath says, "How's the baritone treating you? Does it change your playing style?" Not really, to be honest. Hasn't changed my playing style at all, to tell you the truth. I play it like I do, any other guitar. The scale's longer, so the frets are a little bit farther apart. That's taken some getting used to. When I first grabbed it and, picked it up and played it the first time, what I thought I was playing on the What I thought I was playing on the 5th fret, I was actually playing on the 7th fret. So, that took a little bit of getting used to, but not much. So beyond that, yeah, it hasn't really. That's actually the reason why I went with a baritone over a 7 string, is because I didn't want an instrument that I was going to be forced to change my playing style on. So, yeah, no, I'm still very, very pleased with that purchase. The only drawback to that guitar is I don't now I don't have a bass. I don't have a 5-string bass that's tuned that low that I can record with it. So I've had to when I have recorded things with that guitar, I've actually had to use the guitar itself as the bass and use bass virtual bass amps and modeling bass cabs, IRs and stuff like that. Octave pedals cranked all the way down, stuff like that to try to get it to simulate a bass tone, and I haven't been real thrilled with the bass tones that I've gotten out of any of it with my gear. There's other synth pedals out there and stuff like that that'll do the job, but it would be that part of my recording life would be a lot easier if I had a 5-string. So I need to get a hold of a 5-string so that I have something proper to record it with. Man, that'll come one of these days. Tam's World says, audio's low, sorry can't hear, hope y'all have a great day. Adios, dude. The rest of you guys are all telling me you can hear me just fine. That tells me somebody needs to turn up his volume. JD Mopar says, I hear nothing but good about the Amp Tweaker Type Metal Pro. That's because there is nothing but good about the Amp Tweaker Type Metal Pro. I've had a difficult time recording with that pedal. Every time I've recorded something with it, it's at least recorded direct. It's actually been difficult for me in that regard. But I think that's has more to do with my recordings, my mediocre recording skills than it does anything else. But beyond that, there's nothing to complain about with that pedal at all. It's killer. Best pedal I've ever owned, actually. Robert, what do you know about the B52 Stealth Series LG 100A amp? Memory serves, the LG, the Stealths were pretty good sounding amps. That was one of their tube amps, I believe. I like the ATs better. I own both an AT100 and an ATX 100, and I love both of those. I never owned a Stealth. Played through one a few times, but I think it was one of those instances when they came through the store, happened to be sitting on top of a cheap cab that didn't sound very good. So, so I never really had a chance to put one of the Stealth amps through the paces. The LG 100, though, I think that was actually their solid state amp, if I recall. Overall, B52 made pretty good amps, but the AT100 and the ATX 100 especially. Actually, the ATX 100 is probably my favorite of all of them. Now, let's see who else has jumped in here since I've fallen behind in the chat. Tam's World came and went. Won't mess with saying hi to him. Ricky Compton's here. Cameron Ottinger. Mitchell Bourne. Kobe Oth. Sorry to answer the question for Thunder Falcon. Looks like that's about it here for the time being anyway. Pardon me. Christopher Bass says that means the Laney AOR be reissued. I'm the wrong guy to ask about that. I'm not a fan of the AORs. Cameron Ottinger says, what is the oldest guitar you've ever played? Probably 56 Gold Top. I think it's the oldest one I've ever got my hands on. And I bought that in at the store when I was still at the store. Guy brought it in. Been sitting on it forever, and just decided, I don't know if he needed money or what it was, but he walked out with I think like $22,000. I think we sold it for $30. He walked out with $22,000 and an Epiphone Les Paul and a small combo amp. Yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. So I played a 56 Gold Top. I played a what year was that? Junior. We bought a Les Paul Junior in one time that was 50. Oh man, I can't remember. I think that was a 56 as well. I think that one was a 56. There was also played a 58 Strat that played like absolute garbage. That one, we bought that one from the original owner, and he knew what it was worth, but he was really, really protective of it. But you could tell it had spent far too much of its life in the case, and not being played on properly, and regular maintenance and setups and stuff like that. It seems like there was a 55 Gibson or something or other that I got my hands on one time. I don't recall. That 56 Gold Top, though, was probably the one that comes to mind the most. And there was a 1960 Les Paul. I'm sorry, I forgot about that one. That one obviously wasn't as old as the Gold Top, but the 56, the 60 Burst was the most significant one that I played. That one had at one time belonged to Eric Johnson. And that was the best sounding Les Paul I'd ever heard. I can't believe Eric Johnson sold it. And it had changed hands a few times between Eric Johnson and the buddy of mine that owned it and brought it into us. And he ended up selling it somewhere else, but we couldn't give him quite enough for it. Got close, but I just couldn't talk. The people that were making the decisions on writing the checks, I couldn't talk them up just a little bit more to what I needed to get them to spend on it. So probably the oldest guitar that I played. Now that I think about it, though, there may have been not pre-war stuff, but there may have been a 40s, a 40s Gibson or Martin or one of each along the way that I got my hands on as well. So pardon me. My Knees Hurt says Kill 'Em All is one of my all-time favorite albums. Wore that tape out. I love the music on that record. And even as big of a Metallica fan as I am, I never cared for the production. I never cared for the production on that record. Anytime that I get to see him break out an old Kill 'Em All track in their live show, I get as excited as anybody else does, but the record itself didn't sound very good. There was a big improvement in production between Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. Kobe Out says, have you ever played the Sinister Gates signature amp through Schecter? I was under the impression Schecter doesn't dabble with amps that often. They don't. And they had the, I don't know, what do they call those amps? I mean, the Schecter, was the Hellraiser amps, I think is what. Yeah, and I think there was a USA version and there was an import version of each of those. And at one point, Schecter actually discontinued them. They were notorious for not being real reliable. They were notorious for blowing up at inopportune times and stuff. It got to the point the Sinister Gates actually, had gone and bought them all up. And I think he was doing it just so he could get through a tour or two. Because all the ones that he had out on tour with him were breaking down and doing any number of things, so he needed to have a number of backups just to get him through the tour. I don't know if that's true or not. Oops. I don't know if that's true or not, but I remember hearing about that at the time. They had my attention when they were out, and they looked like they'd be pretty cool amps and something I would have been into at the time. My understanding is they weren't. There were some design flaws in them. Pardon me. And yes, Schecter hasn't, to my knowledge, they haven't haven't dabbled with amplifiers since then. Thunder Falcon says, I believe James Brown designed the USA Schecter amps. I'd have to look into that. I don't know. I would question that just because of all the reliability issues that they had. And, most of the stuff, he knows, there's a more famous amp builder on the planet than James Brown. But, I could be wrong. Mitchell Bourne says PW2 Power Driver still kicks ass. It's kind of an acquired taste, but it's an interesting. That's one of the more interesting pedals that bosses come out with. So, they do that. So that one came out at the same time as the Extortion pedal, which was also kind of a breed of its own as far as distortion pedals go, which you guys will see that one on my channel here the next, I think it's this week. I don't know, I can't remember. Leonard's okay, that's the third time you've asked that question. Anthony Baltusas is here. Says, just got some bad news. It's going to knock me out of work for quite some time. Looks like I'll have a lot of time to practice. And unfortunately, if you're going to be laid out of work, I'm sorry to hear that. But you're right. There's usually a good opportunity to play some guitar. Cool Guitar Gear says, are you that picky about your picks? Any particular brand and models you prefer? My favorite is the Black Hole by V-Picks. But I'm also fond of some timber tone models, including their titanium. I'm actually very, very picky, pardon the pun. But I like picks with grip on them, for one. Here, about maybe not quite a year ago, I switched. I've been using, let's start with these. Here, about a year or so ago, I switched to the Dunlop Flow picks. I think it was called the Flow Standard. They also make the great big fat ones, like 2 and 3 millimeter, which are, I don't have any use for those, but they make some more that are a little bit more, it's kind of like an Ultex material. And this is a 1 millimeter, and I've gone back and forth between the 1 millimeter and the .88. But it's got the pointy tip on it, kind of like a Jazz 3 pick would, but it's a standard sized guitar pick, and it's perfect for me from a playing style standpoint. And I tried them out about a year or so ago, maybe not quite that long, and really, really grew to like them. And that's what I've been using ever since. Before that, I was using the Dunlop Max Grips, pretty much exclusively. I've still got a pile of those. I was using the Dunlop Max grips pretty much exclusively, and I really like those. They didn't, now what I know now though is they didn't fit my playing style quite like the flows do. But I was using the Max grips, and then before that, I was using the Snarling Dog picks, which also had that grip on them. The Max grips and the Snarling Dogs are nylon picks though, versus I kind of like this Ultex material a little bit better. The grip on it isn't quite as good as it was on those others, but it gets the job done for me. So yeah. But speaking of V-Picks, this showed up in my mailbox this week. I didn't even know it was coming. They did send me. Here. When you brought that up, because I forgot this was sitting here. They sent me. There's a shot of their business card if you guys want to get in touch with them and check out their products. Looks like their website is v-picks.com, which they have posted on the back, and I'm never going to, here, let me see if I can get it. Shit. There we go. Yeah, looks like I got an email address of Vinny with an I, V-I-N-N-I, at v-picks.com. You can email him directly. Phone number 615-927-5989, Nashville, Tennessee. Says, never drop your pick again. And anyway, I not only had a chance to glance at these, but what he sent was this a whole bunch of different picks to try out. And a lot of these honestly look a little too thick for my taste. Yeah, there's a 3 mil right there. Triangle size. I haven't gotten into any of these yet. Wow, some of them are thicker than that. So, V-Pick Tradition Light. V-Picks, there's got one on here called a Mummy, Jester. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff. So, definitely one on here called a Red Rocker. Actually, it looks like that might be right up my alley. Yeah, so there's a new pick company. I think that was actually the company that some of those that you were referencing. So, but yeah, I'm going to try those out and see what happens. So, JG Mopar says, I hated the glam rock stuff back in the day, but the guitars are pretty darn good. Never wanted to admit it back then. I couldn't help but admit it. You're right. Guitar player, back then, if you weren't shredding, you weren't playing. Period. Robert, what do you think is an essential function of a guitarist to play harmonics at will? Oh man, I've kind of if you're talking like pinch harmonics, I've never been real good at that either. Tony, my friend Tony Ramsey, who I talk about pretty often, and he's made an appearance or two or 2 or 3 or 4 on my channel. Tony's a really really good guitar player. He used to give lessons for a living there at one point. He still does give lessons today. But he was he told me to keep to learn to turn my wrist as I'm playing. That way the kind of the meat part towards the tip of my thumb will catch the string as I'm striking it with the pick. I've never been able to do that effectively. So what I learned to do was to drag my ring finger and hold that onto the string at the same time that I was striking that string with my pick. And I've been able to do it a lot more consistently that way than I ever have been the traditional way. So that's worked for me. It might not work for you. I don't know that, I mean, I don't know. I do know people that, they play, that's how they've always played harmonics, pentaharmonics. So my old guitar teacher taught me that years ago, because that's what he does. So Gabriel Tone Guitar says, who made the Tobacco Burst Les Paul famous? I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, Slash is the earliest one I can think of that I would say, famous. But I mean, God, there had to be somebody in the 70s that used a Tobacco Burst, that played a Tobacco Burst that was well known. I can't recall who it might have been off the top of my head, but surely there's at least a few guys or gals. Doc Amos Roxy says, football or RGD? No Big Ten, so RGD wins. Yep, no Big Ten this year. No Big Ten. I've never been able to, I follow the NFL religiously, but I've never been able to get into college. I've tried, and I just can't get into college football. I don't know why. The anarcho-Lutherist says, Beato just ended his stream. Are we using our inside voices? I don't know. I don't know I don't know what that refers to. Maybe you were having trouble hearing Rick on his stream as well. I'm not sure. I forgot. He tends to do his streams about the same time I do. No wonder nobody comes to watch mine. Rick goes live at the same time. Stephen Haney, are you familiar with Peavy's Valking line of tube amps? I bought one 2 months ago and I'm still learning about it. Nice amp. Yeah, they're, I sold them when they were, the first generation of them. I was still at the store when those were out, and they were fairly popular. It was a good, affordable tube amp. I don't think they didn't sound bad. I'd heard worse. I don't think they were great sounding amps. Now, the new versions of the next generation, the second gens or whatever they're calling them now, the 2.0s or maybe it's just the Valve King 2, I think is what they're calling them. Those I have not heard, and I suspect that they do sound quite a bit better. But like I said, I've not sat down and tried them. So, the Valve Kings are, a lot of it all just kind of depends on, I think a lot of it depends on who's playing through them, because I've heard some people get those things to sound great. But they didn't seem to be a real good fit for me, Not bad amps, though. Like I said, you could do a lot worse. Let's see. Trying to jump down through here. We're already over 2 hours. Joey Jojo Shabatu says, hey, Robert, speaking of 56 Les Paul Juniors, would you consider yourself to be a fan of Leslie West? I would not consider myself to be a fan of Leslie West because I don't know who he or she is. So, no, afraid not. Big Cole was here. The Hellwind. That was the name of that amp. The Schecter Hellwind. They also, I think the Hellwind was the USA version. The Hellraiser was the import. If now that I think about it, I may be wrong about that too. Though it's been a while. Let's see. Savannah Guitar says I use Dunlop 1.14 millimeter, and I shave it short for my thumb and pick style. I was using a 1.14 there for a little while years ago, and then somehow I switched back to like a 0.73 just because I wanted to see how it affected my playing, and there's a big difference for me anyway. And somehow I ended up landing on the 0.88 there for a while, and then the 1 mils, and I play at 1 millimeter more than anything else right now. But I do kind of go back and forth between 1 millimeter and 0.88. Are pick pinch harmonics cheesy if used too much? Depends on the definition of too much. It depends on if you're good at it. It depends on where, when, and where, and how you're using them. Some people, I think Zakk Wylde has nailed it down to an art form. He uses pinch harmonics a lot, and I think they all sound killer. So. Serenity Guitar says, here's an out-of-box question. Why do men use YouTube more than women, or is that my perception? I think a lot of it depends on the category, the video category. In our industry, there's just more male guitar players than there are female guitar players, and men. Male guitar players seem to be, seem to have a lot more appreciation for gear. It's toys for a lot of us, myself included. So toys for a lot of us, and women, just don't. My wife doesn't do that. She's, she doesn't go out and buy. I know some women get carried away with. I don't want to call it carried away because I don't, that would mean that I'm calling my gear collecting, purchasing, getting carried away. But a lot of women get, like to buy shoes and clothes and handbags and whatever it may be. My wife isn't, she doesn't really get into any of that stuff. She buys what she needs when she needs it, and she hates shopping. So. Me on the other hand, the last thing I need is another distortion pedal, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to buy one. That doesn't mean I'm not going to buy another one. So. Alright, I think I made it all the way down the bottom. Wellesley West, Mountain. I like Mountain as much as the next guy, I guess. I don't know. I consider myself a huge Mountain fan. I couldn't have told you what kind of guitar he played. But yeah, I like Mississippi Queen as much as anybody else. Great song. Seemed to be a good band. Famous dude that touts Mojo Mojo. That would probably be Paul Gilbert. So, alrighty. Well, we've been over 2 hours here, and looks like some of you are starting to drop out here a bit anyway. So, all of you, thank you for coming to hang out with me here for a bit again today. Again, I really appreciate it. I'm always, blown away. This thing kind of seems to grow and get just a little bit bigger every single week. So, I'm always more and more honored every time more and more of you like to come on here and just hang out with me and take time out of your day on a Saturday afternoon. So, everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Keep your eye out for a new video tomorrow. If you do want to, and I forgot to share the stupid, god damn it, second week in a row I did that. I forgot to pin my the link to my Teespring shop. There it is. Now it's pinned up there at the top of the chat. So if you want to support the channel and you want to get something back in return, go check out the Teespring shop. See if there's grab yourself a t-shirt. There's numerous other ways you can support the channel as well if you choose to do so, all down in the description of this video or any video on my channel. So, yeah. So again, everybody, thank you for hanging out, and keep your eye out for new videos here tomorrow morning.